5-minute mom. I'm going to try and keep it at 5 minutes. Might be longer for this one. So I wanted to talk to you about something that I found that I thought was interesting. I'm just going to jump right into it, but I'm going to link the actual primary source information so you can see it yourself. This is it's a little document known as the Biderman report, and it's Albert Biderman, and it's a report that he gave at a panel discussion about North Korea and China communists who had captured U.S. pilots and tried to get them to reveal information, to be compliant. So it's titled Communist Attempts to Elicit False Confessions from Air Force Prisoners of War. And but he has two charts in here that I'm going to look at with you. And they are communist coercive methods for eliciting individual compliance. Actually, it's just one chart. But this is a 10-page little report. I'm going to link it in the description. I find it fascinating. It's what I find fascinating. You may not. But here's the thing. For most of us, we're not in a situation where we're being, held actual prisoner. It may feel like that, but that's not the case. It may feel like, Twitter and YouTube and Facebook are censoring and it's super frustrating and information can't get out. Here's the thing. At some point, we just have to start living our life with the truth that we know. So, handy, right? Cell phone, text people, call people, encourage people. Walk outside, go for a walk, talk to your neighbors. Live life the best way that you know how. Turn off legacy media. Fox, ABC, NBC, CNN, PBS. I don't know. I missed one. Doesn't matter. So all of it. NBC. I think I already said that one. So just turn it off. Turn it off. Social media, Facebook, Twitter. I like YouTube. A friend of mine, shout out to Jody. I gave up YouTube for a week, and she said, Jenny, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. YouTube is really helpful. And I do agree. After all, it gives a lot of people platforms that wouldn't have them. And there are a lot of alternative sites when YouTube, as I do think they will at some point, take everything down that goes against the narrative of compliance at all cost, no matter what the cost. So I'm going to just read this little quote from the article. And like I said, I'll link Dr. I always forget his name. Biderman. I'll link his work here. But I'm just going to read a little quote, and then I'll let you go back and read the rest of it. And then I'm going to look at his chart about the coercive techniques used for compliance related to 2020. I think it's interesting. I think it's worth noting that for the most part, with a few exceptions, like maybe really tyrannical governments like in Michigan and California and who knows where else. I'm sure there are other states that are living under crazy tyrannies at this point, people who should be impeached and removed. But other than that, a lot of us, we still have our freedoms, and we can do what we want, and we can get out and connect with people in real life off of social media. We can disconnect from these psychological tactics to manipulate and influence our behavior and influence our way of thinking. So this is directly from Dr. Biderman. The reception of these findings has frequently been incredulous, and we have been asked, is there nothing more to it than this? Can people really be manipulated so easily? Are you sure there was not something done that you failed to detect? In selecting the material I should discuss here, I have been influenced by these kinds of questions. Such a selection precludes discussing the useful hypothesis about human behavior in situations of stress, which our studies suggested. So again, I find it fascinating, but really when you look at what's been going on, I think it's useful information to have. So I'm going to get into this chart of coercion. Isolation, first one on the list. Deprive the individual of social support, of his ability to resist. Makes individual dependent upon the captor. Individual develops an intense concern with self. So related to our situation with COVID-19, social distancing, isolation from loved ones, solitary confinement and semi-isolation when you're in, serving your time in quarantine if you test positive, quarantines, and even containment camps. And yes, there has been talk and places set aside for quarantine containment camps. They're not calling it that, they're calling it something else, but whatever. And then as far as makes individual dependent upon the captor, when you take away people's ability to work and support themselves, you are making them dependent on you. Canada is already talking about Canadian basic income. Like, this is what we want. This is what we've heard, that, hey, more stimulus. We can shut everything down for 6 to 8 weeks and the government can take care of you all. That's not what I want. I prefer my freedom. You keep your money that you're printing, which is our money. I don't know. Anyway, so the next one here, monopolization of perception. Fixes all attention upon immediate predicament. Frustrates all actions not consistent with compliance. Eliminates stimuli competing with those controlled by the captor. If it's not something mainstream media controls, it's labeled as false, misinformation, it's fact-checked to death. All attention is focused on what's happening right now. There's no long view. There's no looking at the past. There's no looking to the future. It's all immediate, what's happening right now. Restrict movement. Now we can't go places. Create monotony, create boredom, prevent gathering, meetings, concerts, sports, dominate all media, the 24/7, and censor information, which is pretty much what I talked about. That's all related to COVID-19. So the next point from Biderman's chart here is induced debility and exhaustion. Weakens mental and physical ability to resist. People become worn out by tension and fear. People talk about caution fatigue. Again, it's not caution fatigue. It's just the stress of being faced with such incredible death and danger at every turn as presented by the media, because when we look at the data, it's not there, but what the media presents is very dangerous. So induced debility, forced to stay at home, all media is negative, not permitted to exercise or socialize. Threats, cultivates anxiety and despair, gives demands and consequences for noncompliance. And so here in 2020, we have threats and intimidation. Threaten to close businesses, levy fines, predict extension of quarantine if you're not compliant, force vaccinations, create containment camps, all of these things. Fines, mandates, it's going to get worse, the dark winter, all of that. So that's related to COVID for 2020. We're back to Biderman. Occasional indulgence. This is where it gets really interesting or fascinating to me. And I see this all over the place. Okay, so this is Biderman, his chart. Coercion. Provides motivation for compliance. Hinders adjustment to deprivation. Creates hope for change. Reduces resistance. This keeps people unsure of what's happening. So, occasional indulgences for 2020, allowing reopening of some stores, some services, letting restaurants open but only a certain capacity, increase more people allowed to gather, and that's followed by, the concessions are followed by tougher restrictions. So it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back. The NFL resumes their games, but they have no audience. But then the games are, canceled because somebody tests positive. Everything is always thrown back at you in a negative thing. They start the Christmas music really early, right after the elections. Christmas music's up. The stores are all decked out. They're gearing up to take away Christmas. And they did. And they took away Thanksgiving, and they're gearing to take away Christmas. That's the thing. It's already being talked about. This isn't conspiracy. It's just fact. This is what's happening. Get everybody excited about Christmas, and maybe we could have a few days celebrating together if you all do this perfectly. People don't do it perfectly. You've got people yelling because, whatever. If people would just do what they were supposed to do. 2 weeks to flatten the curve, 8 months later. Okay. So demonstrate omnipotence. This is interesting. All-knowing. Omnipotence. All-knowing, right? Demonstrates futility of resistance. This is Fauci. If you would just do what you're supposed to do and quit trying to, be independent thinkers. Americans just need to shut up and do what they're told, basically. Shows who's in charge. Provides positive motivation for compliance. You can tell my sarcasm's coming out a little bit now. So shut down entire economies across the world. We know who's in charge. And I am sorry, but as Catholics, it was seriously disturbing as a Catholic person that during Lent and Easter, no public masses were celebrated across the world. That is so shocking and scandalous. It is crazy. Talk about complete control. Create money out of nowhere. Forced dependency. We talked about that. Develop total surveillance with nanochips, right? You've got your technology. You're going to have your card, which is going to have all your medical information on it, tied to your money, tied to everything else. It's all paperless. And we'll all be so secure wherever we go. Everything will be tracked. All of our movements will be tracked. Degradation. Make resistance seem worse than compliance. Creates feelings of helplessness. Creates fear of freedom and dependence on captors. People actually feel safer with the lockdown because they know what to expect. It's the fear of unknown is scarier than the fear of imprisonment and enslavement. I'm not saying that's true for everyone. I'm just saying at this point, we know a lot of science. We know a lot of science about those masks, and more research keeps coming in. We know a lot of science about the fatality rate at this point. We know a lot. So at this point, we need to move forward with truth instead of continuing with this media cycle of craziness. So here it relates to 2020. Shame people who refuse masks or don't distance. They still get together for things. Make people stand on circles and between lines. Make people stand outside and wait in lines. Sanitation shops everywhere. Sanitation, use a sanitizer, do this, do that, move this way, stand this way. How much can we get people to do? Face masks, shields, don't touch anybody, don't hug people, physical touch is bad. We've got a lot of crazy, demoralizing, harmful, very harmful things as far as human beings being done right now. Enforcing trivial demands develops a habit of compliance. Demands made are illogical and contradictory. Rules on compliance may change. Reinforces who is in control. So enforcing trivial demands for COVID-19 in the 2020, family members must be apart from each other. Masks in the home, and even when having sex. I actually heard that was somewhere. Was that Australia? I don't know who said that. But are you kidding me? Really? How? Yeah. So it's stuff that doesn't make any sense, right? It just doesn't, and there's no science to back it up. But we're still just doing it and promoting it because what it does is it helps us with keeping everybody not knowing what's going on in a state of confusion, and people are easier to control when you keep their stress level up. When you go out and everybody's still in a mask, it's dangerous. Your brain is signaling danger, danger. We've kept our bodies in a state of stress for 8 months now. This is not good psychologically. It's not good. They're wearing people down. I am worn down. So random limits on people allowed to be together, sanitizers to be used over and over in a day. So anyway, that's it. That's all I've got. You can read the whole report. And you can see what rings true to you. I'm not trying to like promote fear. I'm actually trying to say, like this is some serious stuff. And I think it's criminal. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I have nothing to back that up with. But I can't imagine that using these tactics against Americans, the media using these tactics against Americans, I don't know how that could not be criminal. And I don't know what the game plan is. We know the New World Order Great Reset thing. That's true now. What else can come true in 2020? It's going to be interesting. I think they're going to come out with the aliens next. That'll be the next big psyop if we don't comply with masks and the fact checkers and the labels and everything else. It's all kind of a big joke now. Nobody's really paying attention. So they'll come out with something else. But I do think, because at this point, despite science proving the opposite, and with everything, the testing, all the measures we're taking, the fact that the measures we're taking aren't preventing anything, people are starting to question. So, but people are still wearing the mask and still being compliant. So, I don't know. It's going to be, they're going to keep beating this dead horse as long as they can, as long as people will do what they say. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's interesting for me to watch it unfold, but again, I am feel like I'm watching from the sidelines at this point because I'm just doing what I want to do. And here's the point. If people just do what they want to do, if they just live their life like this is the illusion that it is, right? We're far better off. When I see people in the grocery store not wearing a mask, and I mean not wearing a mask, not wearing a mask like this, not wearing a mask like this, they just don't even have one around their neck. I think, maybe I can do that too, right? Which is, all the science I've seen has proven one thing. Those cloth masks and surgical masks were not intended to prevent anyone from spreading or contracting a virus. So, what else could it be? I don't know. I don't see a lot of people walking around with the N95s. So anyway, and maybe we should be saving those for people who really are sick and need them. Anyway, so that's it. That's all I have. I want to encourage you to live your life, do your own research. You can check this out. I've talked about psychological warfare. I've said this is a serious manipulation of the American people over and over again. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse with it. But here is actual, this is what they do. This is what they did in North Korea and China. Don't think it's gotten any better there. These are the tactics that they use to influence and get compliance from people. And it is that easy when you put people in a mentally stressful situation. It is that easy. Fear controls people. So, I would say, let's let go of the fear. Let's look at the facts. And let's move forward. Because we have to start living at some point. The longer we continue to feed the fear and cause physical harm to our body by keeping ourselves in a heightened state of stress, the longer it's going to take to recover. And the longer it's going to take to move on. So let's move on. Let's move on. All right. God bless you. Good measure. Packed down and flowing over. And congratulations to you if you made it to the end of this 20-minute video. I think it might be my longest one yet. And take a look at that report if you're interested in it. I find it fascinating. He said things way better than I have here. So I think it's enlightening. And if you like what I present, like my video, subscribe to my channel, and be sure to always check out the video description for links to other things that I find interesting that I think you might like too. Bye!